Hello, today I am making a video called the God card. Recently, a pastor used that term to talk about people playing the God card, something that they supposedly heard from God, um, and that it could not ever be what God would have said. Okay. Um, not giving a hard time to this pastor. It just brought up something that God and I talked about. And so we're going to go over some Bible stories today. It's actually going to probably be a little bit lengthy, but where God gave some seemingly impossible words to some people that they would say, onlookers would say, no, God never told you to do that. For instance, Abraham sacrificing his son. God would have never told Abraham to sacrifice his son. So when God gives us something uh, unusual, um, our heart needs to be walking in obedience. Now, uh, you know, King Saul was told by God to go wipe out the Amalekites, and he didn't do that and was taken out of power because of it. God let him, basically go insane, and the kingdom was handed over to David um, because Saul did not obey the Lord's instructions. So I started hearing God many years before what I'm going to tell you I heard from God happened. Um, I'm sorry, I've got a lot of technology going on here. I'm trying to get used to some things. I got a new laptop computer for my kids, and I've got lights and cameras and sound all going on around it, and so it's a lot to focus on. But and that's kind of how it was when I was hearing from God, what I heard from Him. Um, I am going to just go ahead and tell you what I heard and give you a little background on it. I had been hearing God for several years, but He had never given me anything outrageous. I've never heard Him say anything so uncomfortable before this. Um, I grew up in the church. I knew the Bible pretty thoroughly. Um, but you can be sure there was a lot of things that I focused in on after I heard this because I couldn't get any satisfaction from the people that I confided in about why God might say this. And I say this to everyone. When you hear from God something that people are going to say, "Oh no, that can't be from God. That's from the devil," um, that doesn't give you a pass. You have to continue to research it out, listen to God. You have to be obedient because, listen, in some cases, your life and the lives of your children are contingent upon your obedience. God has the sovereignty to have you and your children and your loved ones in the palm of His hand, and He can uh, respond against you, and not even just heaven and hell, because you're going to go to hell if you don't obey God. But uh, the today things of losing your children, and I had my brother died in a car accident just before his 20th birthday, and he and I were really close. Um, we had we shared the same birthday. Mine's a day before his, and so we always celebrated our birthdays together. And he was 3 years younger than me, so he was my little brother. Um, and that happened, like I said, just before his 20th birthday. So I knew God had all sovereignty. So I wasn't going to just dismiss what I heard from God, but I did a lot of research, and I'm going to tell you the research that I did. And but I say this: you're not going to hear words of wisdom from people who don't hear God. Their first response is going to be, "There's no way that's from God. You're hearing from the devil." Okay, so I'm going to give you some of these times when people heard some impossible things from God, and show you how I researched it. Now, what I heard from God was this phrase: Mark will be your husband, you will be his wife, You will raise your children and your grandchildren together. Okay? There's no action on my part. There's nothing I'm supposed to do. I'm not being told to go out and do anything. Okay? And I can tell you years later, all these years later, I've been hearing God for over 20 years. It was absolutely God that said it. Okay? So even this morning, I confirmed it with him again that it was absolutely him. He said it was absolutely him. So now, I wasn't married to Mark. I wasn't married to a man named Mark. I had been, at that time, about 20 years in marriage to my now ex-husband, who I stayed married with for about 3 years after that. God was not telling me at that point that I was supposed to get a divorce or anything like that. He just gave me a phrase and I questioned it. Okay. And I went to people that I thought could be trusted to hear those words and help me understand. Okay. Because there's a lot of figurative things that it could mean. Um, and again, I wasn't being given any action to move in any direction. It was just words I heard from the Lord. So I felt safe in revealing those words. But you know what happened to Joseph? Well, we'll cover that. Joseph told his visions to his brothers, and they threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. Hated him. So, all right. So I'm going to go with this first one. Again, I've got some things on the screen here, and hoping that I can make this all work out. So this one's Gideon. I'm going to read you just a little intro in Judges 6:1-6. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep nor cattle nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock in their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. Now, I'm going to jump way down to verse 25, but in here, this is where God's talking to Gideon about, what that it is God. He proved himself to be God, that he was talking to. But why God allowed the Israelites to be so impoverished by these other people groups is because they had altars to false gods. Okay. And so the first assignment that God gave to Gideon was what we're going to talk about in Judges 6:25-31. Okay. That same night, the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build the proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished with the Asherah pole beside it cut down and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They asked each other, who did this? When they carefully investigated, they were told Gideon, son of Joash, did it. The people of the town demanded of Joash, bring out your son, he must die, because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Verse 31, but Joash replied to the hostile crowd around him, are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. Okay, so that's the first part of Gideon's hearing words from God that we're going to have some pretty severe consequences if God didn't manage the consequences for Gideon. Okay, but Gideon heard God tell him to go and tear down the altars to the false gods. Okay, then another impossible thing that God gave to to Gideon is found in Judges 7:1-7, the next chapter over. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all of his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands of Israel, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me." In quotes. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. Okay, so now Gideon's army to go up against these massive armies has gone down from they have lost 22,000 men, and now they only have 10,000 remaining. So still quite a few, but listen to what happens next. Verse 4, but the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give you the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Okay, so, it went from 33,000 men down to 300 men. And Gideon did, with God's provision, go out and make that happen. So the next one is Hosea. Hosea was told to marry a prostitute. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. I'm not going to go into all of that, but you see that he's telling him to go marry a prostitute because Israel has been a prostitute, unfaithful, guilty of unfaithfulness. Okay, so could the words that I heard from the Lord have some kind of figurative thing like that? Now listen, when I heard this and read this, I was like, you're not going to use me like that. Okay, but I wanted to be obedient to God. I wanted to be obedient. I was very troubled by what I heard from God. And I want to say this, who was Mark? Mark was the pastor at the church that I was part of. We had raised our children in that church. And I dearly loved him, his children, and his wife. Okay? Dearly loved. There was absolutely no romantic, sexual, nothing towards Mark, the pastor. But I dearly loved him, and there was definitely a spiritual connection that I believe the Lord put there. Okay, so I was going to make every effort to help Mark with the false doctrine in that church, because I did dearly love him. And I think what the Lord was doing through all that was trying to invest my heart to see that just because someone teaches false doctrine, that doesn't make them evil people. God still loves them. He wants to correct them. And so I think God was putting something in my heart to invest me in other pastors as well. But there was something about Mark that reminded me of my brother Robbie. They had the same middle name. I don't know. Maybe that's where it first started. I don't know. But so I was very just kind of grief stricken over the whole thing, because there was no way I was going to, move without really knowing what God wanted me to do. So the next story I have here is Joseph's vision out of Genesis 37, 5 through 9. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." So that's all I put there, but there's more, obviously. You probably are familiar with the story of Joseph and his brothers. So, some of this I think God needed me to see the Bible play out. And it sure did play out in my own life. I can't tell you the number of people that suddenly hated me because I heard words from the Lord. Um, I don't think it was only just that they were jealous that I was hearing from God and they weren't. I think it was that I could be so arrogant in their minds to think that the Lord would tell me to do something like, you know, have a different husband. Well, listen, there's a whole lot of things that could mean. That could mean that my husband was going to die. um, I didn't know. And I sure wanted to find out what this was all about. I didn't want my children to lose their father. And, you know, but I heard the words from the Lord. They were absolutely from the Lord. You could, 1,000 people could tell me they were not from God. I have my own relationship with God. I absolutely know the words were from God. So all the gossip that you want to say, go ahead. God hears it. He knows how to punish you if you're going to be a fool and uh, think you're going to talk behind God's back. You're not, you know. So anyway, sorry, that's not for everybody. That's just for the people that would gossip. Okay, so this next one is to Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel. He was told to cook his food over human excrement. This is found in Ezekiel 4, 1 through 16. And I may read this whole thing. Lord, yes, child, read it. All right, so siege of Jerusalem symbolized. "Now, son of man, take a block of clay, put it in front of you, and draw the city of Jerusalem on it. Then lay siege to it, erect siege works around it, build a ramp to it, set up camps against it, and put battering rams around it. Then take an iron pan, place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and turn your face toward it. It will be under siege, and you shall besiege it. This will be a sign to the people of Israel. Then lie on your left side and put the sin of the people of Israel upon yourself. You are to bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side. I have assigned you the number of days as the years of their sin. So for 390 days, this is over a year, you will bear the sin of the people of Israel. After you have finished this, lie down again, this time on your right side, and bear the sin of the people of Judah. I have assigned you 40 days, a day for each year. Turn your face toward the siege of Jerusalem, and with bared arms prophesy against her. I will tie you up with ropes so that you cannot turn from one side to the other until you have finished the days of your siege." Now, Lord, I thank you that this was not what you said to me. I'm glad it was to Ezekiel and not to me. Okay. And again, you didn't give me any instruction to move in any way. This was just words, just a statement. It wasn't a direction. Um, okay, so verse 9: take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, put them in a storage jar, and use them to make bread for yourself. You are to eat it during the 390 days you lie on your side. Weigh out 20 shekels of food to eat each day, and eat it at set times. Also measure out a sixth of a hin of water and drink it at set times. I just realized I may not have been speaking into the microphone all this time. Eat the food as you would a loaf of barley bread. Bake it in the sight of the people using human excrement for fuel. Using human excrement for fuel. The Lord said, in this way, the people of Israel will eat defiled food among the nations where I will drive them. So again, it's another visual of a thing to come. Okay. Then I said, not so, sovereign Lord. I have never defiled myself From my youth until now, I have never eaten anything found dead or torn by wild animals. No impure meat has ever entered my mouth. Very well, he said, I will let you bake your bread over cow dung instead of human excrement. He then said to me, Son of man, I am about to cut off the food supply in Jerusalem. The people will eat rationed food in anxiety and drink rationed water in despair. For food and water will be scarce. They will be appalled at the sight of each other and will waste away because of their sin. Okay, so here's Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, who also had heard the Lord for many years before the Lord told him to do this. And he's going to lay on one side for 390 days, over a year. He's going to lay on his other side for 40 days. All of this to uh, give a message to the people. How fair was that to Ezekiel to, put him out in the marketplace, laying on his side, eating his food cooked over human excrement? That it just didn't seem fair. But this is what I'm reading when I've heard these words from the Lord. Would it be fair for him to uh, make me marry a man that I didn't have that kind of connection with? I loved him dearly. I had a spiritual connection to him, but certainly not a romantic connection. But you know what? I would have preferred that over what Ezekiel had to go through. So I read these things. I mean, I just, to this day, the Lord has not ever done anything more than that with it. But He definitely said those words to me. I think it was, just a heart thing, and it actually cleared up who was for me and who was against me in the walk that I was walking with the Lord. Um, and there weren't very many for me, but that's okay. I only need the Lord, and I'm thankful that He's kept my children in my life. This one's from Esther 4:12 through 14. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: Do you think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape? For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family's family will perish. Okay? You and your family's family will perish if you remain silent. Okay? And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So Esther was a young Jewish girl who was pushed into or forced into the king's harem, um, but was chosen to be the queen. Okay, and the previous queen had already, uh, kind of been thrown away, uh, and so um, again, the Lord's placed her at a very specific place at a very specific time to save the Jewish people. One woman, and there are some very strong women in biblical history. If you think of the prophet Deborah, the woman, I was going to look up her name and I've forgotten to do that. That drove a tent peg through the commander's head of the enemy army, and um, you know, just a lot of strong. Well, Mary had to be pregnant outside of marriage. Oh well. So I'm going to keep telling some more things that people would say, no, God didn't tell you this, or okay. So Peter had a vision one day. About noon the following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat, and while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven opened and something like a large sheet being let down to the earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles, birds. Then a voice told him, Get up, Peter, kill and eat. Surely not, Lord, Peter replied. I have never eaten anything impure or unclean. The voice spoke to him a second time. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheet was taken back to heaven. Okay, so that's all I'm going to read you. And that was out of Acts 10:9-16. Okay, so up until that time in all of Israel's history, they were not allowed to eat certain meat. And uh, here God is telling them to eat the meat that is considered impure. Okay, so, you know, who's going to believe him? He doesn't have a certificate from God that's been signed that says, here, go do this. Okay, so, and that's one of the things with hearing God. It's really your obedience to God, and God is going to test that. Okay, now, is there any, is it a sin to be tempted, uh, or to process, or to think out what, to analyze? Is that a sin? No, it's not a sin. It's not a sin to be tempted. The sin comes from the tempter, not from the one who's being tempted. It's how you act on that temptation. And I can tell you that nothing sexual or romantic ever happened between the pastor and I. Um, so this next one is Jesus tested in the wilderness. Now we know that Jesus is God, the one and only God, who was walking in a Son of Man flesh suit, as this story unfolds. Right down Matthew chapter 4, I'm reading from verse 4. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you are the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up on their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Okay, so you see what the devil did here. He took something that is written in the Bible, and he used it as a manipulation, a way to try to tempt. If this hadn't been God, um, you know, he may have been more successful at his temptation, but Jesus is God, so he knew everything that was going on. And he's much more powerful than the devil. Jesus answered him, it is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Verse 8, again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. All this I will give you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. Jesus said to him, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him. So that last line, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. If you've heard something from God, you need to have that right with God. It doesn't matter what any person on the earth says to you about it. What you do has to be what God is leading you to do. Okay? You God will let you ask him all the questions in the world. If you're not getting answers, then you just need to be patient and wait for whatever his next assignment is to you. Because it's a daily walk with the Lord. It's not he doesn't just give you something to do and then say, okay, you got 3 years, go, see if you can make it happen. No, it's a follow me step by step. And so that's what I did. Yes, I did eventually divorce um, my now ex-husband after 23 years of marriage, but it was not uh, at the same time as I heard these words from the Lord. But it was because of, as I tried to be obedient to God, it was a very difficult walk. I had never experienced the manifestation of the Spirit and gifts. One time, the first time I spoke in the gift of speaking in tongues, I was Baker acted by my husband because, um, that couldn't be from God. I was Baker acted actually 4 times. Baker acted means I was put into psychiatric unit. Okay. If I could have just had someone who stood beside me and said, I know God's doing this, let's figure it out together. But it wasn't that way. The devil brought every person he could against me. Now, God could have not allowed that to happen. He could have not allowed the devil to use people that I loved against me. But God chose to allow it. In his sovereignty, he chose to allow it. Ultimately, God wanted me alone so that I could walk in complete obedience to him without being beat down every time that I heard something from the Lord. Okay? So this it's a lot of turmoil still in my heart over that whole season. And it hurts me when I know that people are gossiping and lying about what happened, because you know what? If you know God, please go ask him if I did anything wrong, because I did nothing wrong. But the devil sure would like it people to believe that I did do something wrong. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Did I play the God card? No. There was no playing about it.